Okay, let's start. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining the webinar and digital event unboxing SAP Business Application Studio. My name is Xander Rijken. I will be one of your hosts for today. We prepared a nice agenda. Let's start with a kickoff, and I will explain more about innovation and briefly touch what the Business Application Studio is, the goal for today, which questions we would like to answer. Then my colleague Tyler will take over, and he has prepared some demos for you to see what kind of capabilities the Business Application Studio has. And after the demo, Wim will take over to do a comparison between Business Application Studio and the Web IDE, and share our conclusions and thoughts about the Business Application Studio. And in the end, we have some questions and answers. And we would like to ask you, if you have any questions during the session, please add them to the chat functionality of this session, so my colleague can collect all the questions and group them so we can answer them in the end. If there are a lot of questions, we will make a top 5 or top 10 to answer because of time, and we'll try to answer the other questions in a later session or in one of our blogs. So we are innovation. We started about 2 years ago with a special focus on the SAP Cloud Platform, and especially on the new features like conversational AI and artificial intelligence. You can see all the things we do on this slide, like the masterclasses during CityNL, our innovation days where we get deep understanding, hands-on experience with the latest technologies, so we can organize all kinds of cool events and have a lot of fun with each other. We have a focus on user experience and design thinking, robotics, RPA, conversational AI. And if you want to know more about the chatbot functionality of SAP, please visit our GitHub account and have a look at our tutorials, so you can have a good start with conversational AI. We also focus on integration in the broadest meaning of the word. It can be system to system or integrating all kinds of objects, like sensor data or even devices that are available all around us, and connect them to the SAP Cloud Platform. And we do also full stack development. These will be your hosts for today. My name is Xander Rijken. My colleague Wim Snoep will do the last part of the presentation. Joshua and Imke will join in at the Q&A. Tyler will be presenting the demos, and Julian will also be available during the Q&A sessions. What is the goal for today? We have prepared a couple of questions we would like to answer in relation to the Business Application Studio. Is the product mature enough to be used in a productive environment? Is it better than a Web IDE? And can it be used as a replacement for SAP Build? We will show you some functions during the demos, what the capabilities are of Business Application Studio. And in the end, you have a good understanding about the current capabilities, and we're also focusing on the roadmap, what to expect in the near future, what will be developed for the Business Application Studio, and of course our Q&A. Already touched it a couple of times. What is the Business Application Studio? It's actually the next generation development environment for us as SAP developers. It's available in the cloud and in the Cloud Foundry only environment. It's quite new actually. It's released early this year in February, and it can coexist alongside of the current Web IDE. And it offers you a Visual Studio Code-like experience. So if you are using Visual Studio Code at the moment, you can easily adapt to this new environment. So far, my part of the presentation, and I would like to give the controls now to Tyler, who has prepared some nice demos for you.
Right, thank you, Xander. So yeah, like Sander said, I prepared some nice demos for you guys. Let me see. So the first demo movie I've prepared is our first contact with the SAP Business Application Studio. Yeah, without further ado, let's just jump right straight into it. Hello everyone, and welcome to our unboxing of the Business Application Studio, or as we like to call it, BAS. So BAS is supposed to be the successor to the Web IDE, and as you can see here on the SAP Cloud Platform cockpit, BAS has already taken its spot. So let's go ahead and launch it to see what it's all about. After launching BAS, we land on the DevSpaces page. A DevSpace is basically a development environment with all of the tools, capabilities, and resources needed for developing your application. We are going to need one before we can continue, so let's go ahead and click Create DevSpace. Here we have to choose what kind of application we want to make. As you can see, we get quite a few different choices here. For example, a mobile services application. But for now, let's choose the SAP Fiori one, give it a name, and click Create DevSpace. So our DevSpace is starting up here. As you can see, the orange text. Once it's ready, it will say running in green, and then it will be ready to launch. So what these DevSpaces actually do is they create a virtual machine in the SAP Cloud with a pre-installed Eclipse Thea variant on it. With that being said, the editor doesn't look like Eclipse. It will actually look like Visual Studio Code, which we'll see here in a minute. So there we go, running. Let's go ahead and launch it. Now we are in the BAS development environment. The first thing we see is the welcome page. The welcome page looks like it gives us some frequently used options like creating a quick new file, creating a project from template, cloning a project from Git, or just opening a recent file. On the left-hand side is our workspace area. There we will be able to find our projects once we have some and group and manage them. Let's go ahead and click Open Workspace. Open Projects. Now we have opened our project. You can see down here it says the organization and space in Cloud Foundry have not been set yet. So we have to set it by logging into our Cloud Foundry account in the bar here. So when you start BAS for the first time on a new dev space, you'll need to open the initial workspace and manually connect to the Cloud Foundry environment using your SAP Cloud Platform credentials. So we have successfully logged in here and the organization and space have been set. So the next thing we want to show you guys is the terminal. So let's go up here and select Terminal, New Terminal. And let's check the OS version real quick. So as you can see, we have a fully functional terminal available with Linux running on it. Let's check our permissions. Are we allowed to install Chrome, for instance? So no, permission denied. Unable to acquire DPKG, front and lock are your root. So unfortunately, we don't have super user access. Okay, that was it for our first contact. Next up is generating a template application. Let's try creating a template. We can use the link on the welcome page, but let's try out the Finder. Let's click View, Find Command, search for template, and choose Create Project from Template. Let's go with a Fiori FreeCell project next. Here it looks like we have to select a target running environment. So if you want to run your application on the SAP Cloud Platform's Cloud Foundry environment, you should choose Cloud Foundry here. But let's say we want to run our application on a good old SAP system. So let's choose ABAP and click Next. Enter a project name. Let's go with My First App 1. Do you want to add a data service? Yes. Select a system, My SAP Systems. Select a source, ECD. Select a service. Let's go with this beautiful custom service. Next. So that's done. Great job. As you can see, Bass generated a project for us here in our workspace. Before we can run it, though, we have to create a run configuration. This is only necessary the first time. After that, Bass should just remember it. Let's go ahead and press the big play button here, and then press the Create Run Configuration button. Enter our app name, index, latest UI5 version, and our run config name. So there's our run configuration. Next, we have to bind the data source to a destination. Let's choose ECD and press Run Module. Okay, it's done. Let's click Open a new tab. And there it is. Wow, that loaded fast actually. Very nice. Alright, let's go back to the Explorer tab, because the next thing I want to try with you guys is the layout editor. We all know and love the layout editor from the Web IDE, right? But you know, there's always room for improvement. In Bass, we should be able to open a split view of the layout and code editor at the same time. This will allow us to drag and drop controls to the layout editor and directly see the code snippets generated in the code. Sounds pretty cool, right? Let's go check it out. Let's head on over to the View folder and right-click on View.xml. Select the layout editor. Then let's right-click View.xml again and select the code editor. Now we'll drag the layout editor into the code editor, and boom, we have a split view. Let's drag and drop a button control to the editor. And there you go. There's our code snippet. Now let's refresh the app in the browser. And ooh, that refresh speed is very, very fast. What do you guys think? I could definitely get used to that. All right, let's move on to the next thing I want to try with you guys, and let's deploy our application to a SAP system. Now, in the current version of Bass, the only way to do this is with the command line. So let's go ahead and open the terminal, click New Terminal, and let's type in cd.myfirstapp/ and then abap-deploy. Specify the source folder path for deployment. Let's choose web app. Enter a description, enter a package, enter a transport request. So let's copy and paste that. And failed to deploy application. Well, hopefully this is fixed in the near future. Okay, so that was it for the template generation. What I forgot to mention was the prerequisites for these demos are creating a SAP Cloud account, so subscribing to Business Application Studio, and also oh yeah, and also you can visit the developers tutorial. Can we Let's see here. Oh, we'll put that in the chat for you guys. Also, we're seeing a lot of questions in the chat. Please, if anyone has a question, feel free to leave your question on the chat and we'll get back to it later. All right, let's head on over to the next video. Sorry, the next one is going to be about guided development, the SAP Fiori Elements Tools guided development. Let's go. Before we can try the SAP Fiori tools, we will need a Fiori Elements application. So let's go ahead and create one with the template generator. Find command, create project from template. Let's select Fiori Elements application. Next. Let's choose the work list. Click next. Select our data source, SAP system. Select the system. And select our data service. Click next. Select the main entity. Give our module a name. Let's give our application a name. And let's fill in a namespace. Next. So while our template is loading up here, let me take a minute to explain what the SAP Fiori tools are. They are basically tools that allow us to simplify the development of Fiori Elements applications by providing extensions. These extensions help us create our applications, visualize navigation, and automatically generate code. A few examples are the Fiori Elements Yeoman generator, the application modeler, and the guided development. The guided development is the one I want to try first with you guys. So as soon as our template is done loading, let's go and check it out. Okay, so our project has been generated. Let's go and start the run configuration. Select our app, hit the play button, and click on Run Module. Okay, our app is running in the browser. Let's go try it out. Click on the test folder, FLP sandbox. Click our app. Now, since our app has no annotations, we're going to have to manually select the columns we want to view. Let's select company code and company name. Okay. And great, there's our data. Now we have our Fiori Elements app. Let's try to add some annotations with the guided development. But before we jump in, let me quickly explain what it is. It's basically like the software development kit for Fiori Elements annotations, and it's integrated within BAS. So this is nice to have because prior to BAS there really was no good way of looking these annotations up. Not only can we look them up now, the guided development will generate usable code for us and provide some input help as well. So let's go check it out. Let's right-click on our project and select Open Guided Development. Let's search for Add Column in the search bar here. Alright, add a new column to a table. Let's see what this is. So this is the input help I was talking about. The guided development will help us determine an entity type, navigation path, and property. Let's go with comp code. Click Apply. And uh-oh, we ran into an error. Cannot read property term of undefined. So we're getting this error because as of now the guided development will only add to existing annotations. So annotations coming from the back end. Hopefully they will change this in the near future, but don't worry, for now we can just add one manually by using this handy dandy code snippet. Let's select it, copy. Let's open our annotations XML, manually paste it in here. Then let's format document. And now let's head on back to the guided development. Search for add column. And we're back. So let's try this one more time. Entity type, company code. Select the property, comp name. And apply. So there's our code snippet added to the annotations. And it says guide step applied. Now let's restart our app to see if the annotations added the columns. Let's click the test folder, FLP sandbox, click our app, and surely enough, they did. Okay, so that works great. I really like how easy it is to add annotations with the guided development. Let's add another one. How about this one? Add a new filter field to the smart filter bar. Alright, looks good. Let's scroll down. And again, choose an entity type and a property. And there's our code snippet. Click apply. And there you go. It adds it to the annotation XML. Beautiful. So what happens if you can't find the annotation you're looking for? Let's go back to the guided development and search for bold. So no results except for request new guide. Here you have the option to describe what you're looking for and request a new guide from SAP. So this is a pretty neat idea, and I think it'll be cool to just see a huge amount of guides in the future. All right. Heading on to our final demo is going to be about migrating your SAP Web IDE project to BAS. Let's go check it out. The last thing I want to show you guys today is how to migrate a project from the Web IDE to BAS. I think the best way to do this is by using a git clone. Then we just need to edit some technical files and we should be good to go. Let's head on over to terminal, new terminal. Type in our git clone command. Then enter our credentials. Now we need to copy some files from our BAS project to our Web IDE project and edit some as well. The access app.json, we can just completely copy and paste it. There we go. The UI5.yaml, we have to copy and paste the contents and edit the namespace. My Web IDE app. The same goes for the package.json file. We can just copy over the contents and change the name to my Web IDE app. And lastly, we have to change our index.html file. The source path is wrong. There we go. Now all that's left to do is create a run configuration. So let's click the play button, create run configuration, my Web IDE app, index.html, latest, and enter our name for the run config. Then we have to connect the data source to a destination and click run module. So while this builds here, let me explain real quick why we had to add and change some of the files. Basically, it's because BAS runs on the Cloud Foundry environment, and our Web IDE app was created to run on the Neo environment. So we just needed to make some changes for it to run properly on Cloud Foundry. And there we have it. Our Web IDE app successfully migrated over to BAS. All right, So that was it for our demo series of unboxing the SAP Business Application Studio. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun making it, at least. Next up, my colleague Wim is going to talk a bit about the upsides and downsides of the Web IDE versus BAS. So without further ado, I'm going to give the control back to Wim.
Yes, thank you, Tyler. Thank you for these nice demos. Hopefully they give you some insights in what Business Application Studio can do. It is a lot. We weren't able to actually show all of it. But let's do some comparison on some main features, which we've at least discovered during our unboxing. So we've seen in this list, we see quite a lot of features exposed. What it showed in one of these demos Tyler gave is especially this command line access, right? So you actually have the ability, if you actually have a virtual system running in the cloud for you, you can do all you like over there. So you have quite a nice lot of control of the environment. That is simply not there in the Web IDE. You might not have missed it. Maybe on the cloud development, it's actually pretty nice to have. So you can tweak and further modify your development and build scripting and whatever you like to do. But maybe also a bit based on that, the learning curve is a bit more tough, a bit more high maybe for Business Application Studio. Maybe it's not the studio itself. Maybe it's the ability to actually do a lot with command line. So you need to know how to do it. First sight, maybe it looks a bit user unfriendly, but yeah, you have to get used to it. While the Web IDE, you just click next, and you have your, based on the template, you can run your app, right? So this takes a little bit more discovery, which is doable. It's just a different learning curve, I think. The big difference, right, is the Neo account versus Cloud Foundry. So Web IDE runs on Neo. It's only available there. And Business Application Studio focus on Cloud Foundry. That's the focus of SAP as well, to move to work with Cloud Foundry. So that fits along that route as well. Yeah, purchasing, of course, well, license-based, but now the cloud credits option is there as well. So that's a possibility for Business Application Studio. Yeah, obviously you can do a lot of the same things, right? So you have the ability to actually develop UI5. You have this layout editor, but you have this nice split view where you can see both, even the code and the visual. So that's pretty nice. One of the discoveries is as well that you're not able to do ABAP. You cannot do that in the Web IDE as well, but hopefully, maybe it's coming in the Business Application Studio. We haven't seen that yet. Same is valid for ABAP core data services, right? It might be coming. It might be nice. More to that later. What is one of the differences actually extension factory? That's the whole new paradigm of ability with enterprise messaging and extending your S4 system with the extension factory concept to actually use that and have some templating for that. And that's available in the Business Application Studio. It's not in the Web IDE. One of the differences we found is we weren't able to see the ability to actually extend on-premise Fiori apps. Well, actually, that's yeah, in a lot of cases, that's still a use case at our customers to be able to do this. Web IDE, you can simply do it. It's not possible, at least not possible yet, in the Business Application Studio. Yeah, and there's a lot of things are there, right? They're only extending. There are a lot of templating is already there in the Web IDE. That's only extending and then getting more and more in the Business Application Studio. Deploying is possible, although we had some struggles there. It's possible via the terminal, so you can deploy. Yeah, in the Web IDE, that's one of these things which feels like the usability is a bit better, right? You just click for deployment. You don't have this terminal option, so that makes things a bit more user friendly. But having said that, well, the Cloud Foundry environment is maybe a bit more complex as well to work with, if that's your focus. Yeah, might be a very nice fit to work with Business Application Studio. We will come to that later. What is a nice difference for Business Application Studio is you have these the dev spaces, which Tyler explained in the beginning. A web ID only has one, so that's just a big list of your projects. And yeah, normally you have a lot of projects. You can close them, but you don't remove them, so you still have them in your list. And if you have your dev spaces, and in the trial you have two, if you have a paid account, enterprise account, or any form of paid account, you can have more. I don't know the exact number, but in the trial, at least you have two dev spaces already where you can at least do a split up, maybe per customer, if you're a consultant, or per sort of program, or whatever you like, which gives you a better overview, or it's nicer to work with. So this is a bit of insight in features we discovered. Yeah, there are two solutions, still both existing. But then this. We've seen this message some weeks ago. This came up, and also if you're a trial user, you got an email regarding this. SAP is actually stopping with the Neo environment, at least the trial. And they are announcing this for some years already, right? On take it that they want to move to Cloud Foundry, but that was never really concrete. The button for Neo was somewhere hidden already to get access to your Neo trial environment. So it was indicating pretty well that it might be gone soon, but it was never really gone. But now it really is going to end. So if you're a user of the trial environment and actually doing the web ID from there, you just simply can't anymore. You have to switch to the web ID personalization, which is there, or well, switch to bus. That probably tells something about roadmap for SAP, right? It looks like the focus. It looks like the focus of SAP. So in the beginning, we had some questions which we were discussing. And one of these questions is actually, is the Business Application Studio ready? Is it really ready to be used productively? We think it is, definitely. But it's still some features which, like this extending of standard SAP Fiori apps, which, yeah, you should simply sometimes need to do this. Sometimes you develop custom apps, sometimes you do an extension which is just a better fit. You stay closer to the standard, so you need to be able to do this. And then we are not able to do that with the Business Application Studio. So that might be a miss, which I guess SAP will pick up on this, will create this. But it needs, yeah, some things need more development. We had some struggles to use and to create this overview for you to see what's possible. Not all things act the same way as we, if you repeat the same process. So some things can be improved on usability, we think. But it's still a pretty new product, right? It came out somewhere beginning of 2020. It's growing quite quick. But usability would be nice that it also will be a bit increased. But if you're working for cloud and working on Cloud Foundry and deploying apps over there, it's really usable. So a bit on our roadmap, which is good to know about the future, how SAP actually sees the solution. We are already now in Q3, right? Almost nearing Q4. So what it states here, and this is the best roadmap we could actually discover on this solution, we could find on this solution. So these Q1, Q2, Q3 things are obviously they are there. So SAP stick to its promises. Recently, I saw the announcement to be able to deploy to the ABAP cloud system, integrating CI/CD. It's possible. Workflow mobile. I've seen lots of announcements on Business Application Studio. We haven't been able to discover all of those. What's interesting is on the right side, So SAP HANA is coming as part of Business Application Studio. It's possible right on the Web ID. You have the Web ID option on your HANA suite. Another thing which is nice that they are going to open it up for extensions. It's pretty an open framework. It's based on Eclipse TIA. You could make your own extensions, and you could even share them and put them in this Business Application Studio. An interesting development as well is the personal edition. I'm a bit struggling with that myself. We also come to see that a bit later, but we have this other option, Visual Studio Code, which is another way to actually do localized development with your local installation, having a lot of the same experiences. This Business Application Studio actually looks like this VS Code solution. So I'm wondering what the vision is to actually still deliver this personal edition of SAP. Probably because you can use these extensions back and forth. I'm a bit puzzled by that message, but there's a lot coming for this direction, and it's actually coming pretty fast. If you look at all these options coming in. I think that's enough for our roadmap, future directions. Let's go to this question, right? It's actually, it's a tough question, right? It's Business Application Studio, is it better? Really better than a Web ID? Yeah, it's the typical, probably it's the typical SAP question, SAP answer. It depends, right? It depends on your use case. We drilled it down a bit to a persona. So if you're a citizen developer, you're used to actually have really a guided development. Don't have to use the command line, hardly have to use a command line. You're used to working with this Web ID solution. It's quite accessible, quite usable. Yeah, then you would like the Web ID. You really would like the Web ID. But if you're more focused on the cloud development, you know a lot about Cloud Foundry, you know how to work with the app router and HTML5 repository, how it's all related to each other, all these services. And you just need a lot of command line, and you're already working a lot with command line access, then you really will like this Business Application Studio, because it saves you a lot of time for installing all these features on your local laptop. Maybe you don't have the ability at your customer to do so. This gives you a virtual system, actually, Business Application Studio, to do this, to do all of this. So it gives you full control. So if you really are like a hardcore developer, we just took the bigger picture. But then you would really like this Business Application Studio. But then there are more options, right? As I named earlier as well, if you need to do full stack development, and you need to do ABAP development, you need to do ABAP CDS development, changing some functionality in backend, and exposing services to actually make a nice UI5 app on top of it. You might see it as a struggle if that's your role, to actually be this full stack developer, because then you cannot fully use Business Application Studio because you can do ABAP. And if you do Visual Studio Code, you could simply install the ADT tools and you actually can do ABAP development. And then you would be having one tool to actually do your job. And you still have this command line option, and it's actually, it looks all the same as what Business Application Studio looks like. So it's a real nice competitor, and SAP is recognizing it like that even more. They actually designed this Business Application Studio to look like VS Code, because VS Code is so well adopted among all the developers. Even SAP itself is showing it and using it in their, when there was still a live Taget sessions, they show this Visual Studio Code. So it's really a nice competitor and comparable with all these extensions which are possible to do a lot of the same things. So it really depends on the persona, what you need to do, how you need to do it, what your options are at the client, of course, to install software, yes or no, how easy to get started. But those two on the right are really interesting. One of the other questions, we read somewhere on one of these blogs, you heard about SAP Build, right? It's the prototyping solution which SAP is having since years, actually. We read it will be sunset. So the question is, what will be the replacement? What will happen to it? And it was mentioned that Business Application Studio might be the place for it. So we were wondering how and where and which part of Business Application Studio will actually give this option to us. We weren't able to find it. It's not there. It's not. You can really use this Fiori Elements way of designing and actually you work with the annotations to and layout editor to make a nice app, but it's different than being prototyping. So it's not a replacement for Build. It's not prototyping. And for example, the nice thing about Build was the study option, right? You could send your design to several people and they would validate it for you. They can give you the feedback, say, I like this, I don't like this. These features are not, probably not yet, but I didn't see it on the roadmap yet. They are not there in Business Application Studio. So it's really a development environment, not like a design environment as to our vision. So that's really a myth which is busted in our opinion. So if we come to some conclusions of today, and of course we have room for questions and so on later on, but it's an environment, Business Application Studio, which is, maybe it feels a bit difficult in the beginning to get used to it. It's more difficult than maybe Web IDE. But a lot of it is also based on the Cloud Foundry environment, which is a bit more complicated. You need to work with all these services, to work with the destination services, connectivity services, all these dependencies which you have to manage, which have to work. And it is very promising, and it really seems like the future of how SAP sees this, because they this new environment will be well, the trial is being sunset. So I'm just really wondering how quick and how fast it will go before the whole Neo stack will actually be removed. It doesn't look like the real future anymore from SAP. So you probably have to move to another solution, which then might be, well, as we discussed, right, based on your persona. So for full stack, ABAP CDS, yeah, well, then it will be even more promising, right? If that will be in there, Business Application Studio, then it's your own place to go. You can do a lot. And it looks like your own system because you just have command line access. You can do anything. But yeah, the current VS Code options right now for local installation, they are very promising as well. It's really smooth and really fast, as what also Business Application Studio is. So it's a real nice alternative. So yeah, it depends. But it's really, there are options, and it's really good to think about your options. If you're just right now using Web IDE to do your developments, this is the time to start thinking about your next step, because Web IDE will be, well, of course, it's not gone yet, but that's not the focus of SAP anymore. Business Application Studio is. And if you look at command line options, that's yeah, just a very nice option to have. There's a lot of things we've discussed and named during this session. I guess there will be a lot of questions already asked in the chat. People wondering about things which we discussed things during this webinar already. Probably you still have a lot of questions. So I'm going to stop this presentation and let's make room for questions. So where
Wim,
shall we start? Yes.
I think a few questions were already asked in the chat. Okay. So let's start by answering those questions first.
Yes.
So if you will allow me, then I will do that right now.
Go ahead.
First question we had from Frank. He asked, the same functionality of the Business Application Studio seems to be also made available in Visual Studio Code. What are the main differences and pros and cons? I think Wim already answered this question for a big part. One, I think it's personal preference. So do you like to work in your own local environment on your own laptop or desktop? And second, are you able to do so at your customer or at the company that you work for? So maybe there is no option to do this from your local machine. Maybe you have to use this cloud option. So these things combined, I think, answer these questions. They both aim to be the same functionality, and even SAP is putting a lot of effort in making it look the same. So then it's just up to personal preference and the way you like to work. So next question was from Sanket. How difficult is it to go from SAP Web IDE to Business Application Studio for developers? This one is, yeah, it really depends on what kind of developer you are. We already discussed the different personas. And what I do want to say is if you are a starting developer, or if you started development, SAP UI5 development in the SAP Web IDE, what SAP Web IDE did in a great way was take you by the hand and give you a lot of wizard-like tools to generate files, to generate extensions to standard SAP apps, and to do a lot of things for you. But you didn't have the full control to do things. So is it difficult to go from Web IDE to Business Application Studio? You can still develop SAP UI5 applications, but you have a lot more control. So if you've never heard about a command line interface, yeah, that will be a tough part of the Business Application Studio for you to handle. But once you get the hang of this, you really appreciate the freedom that you have in development. So it can be hard to switch, but if you are already used to command line stuff, then it will not be hard at all for you. It will be actually, yeah, a better environment for you to develop in. Next question was from Frederick. If Business Application Studio can be used to extend on-premise Fiori apps, how will one have to extend an on-premise app when you're working in Cloud Foundry? So this one is regarding the current state of Business Application Studio, because the state that we are looking at it right now is still, as we have discovered, a work in progress. Only in the few weeks before, we saw things changing in a rapid pace. So things that are not available right now will become available probably very soon, very quickly. And in the end, there's just specifically for extending on-premise apps, yeah, what it actually is just a few files. And what Web IDE did in a very nice way was give you a user interface, give you a wizard thing to select your app, select what you want to extend, and then everything was generated for you. You can still extend apps in Business Application Studio, but there's no UI or no wizard for you to do it for you. So we expect it to be coming really soon. So there will probably be the same functionality and same user interface thingies available also in Business Application Studio, but it's not in yet. Last question was also from Sanket. Since this is no prototyping tool, as mentioned by Wim, is it possible to import prototypes from build here in BAS? Same way we can do it in Web IDE. As of yet, it is not yet possible, but same thing applies here as the last question. Probably it will be in very soon, but not yet. Because in SAP Web IDE, we had this option, right? When generating an app, you could do an extension, and then you would have the import from build option available. Yeah, it will probably become available really soon, but it is not in right now. So that were the questions that were asked in the chat. If there's more questions, you can put them in the chat right now. And I hope I answered all your questions. So let's see what you think.
An extra addition to the build topic is as well that the future of build itself, right? If that will be even an option, still SAP is actually expanding and extending. But that's a different topic. But then that would also drill down to, do they actually gonna build this functionality to import from build, right?
Yeah, so if we look into the sunset block of the build tool, this is actually what they state, is we're going back to what we do best. And this is making a good ERP system and the tools you need to develop it. There are other tools maybe that are better at designing Fiori applications. And probably maybe SAP is not going to create this functionality again, but we obviously cannot know for sure. One more question from Frank. Will the recording of this session be available for downloading, viewing at a later time? And Julian is already answering also in the chat. We will post a link and we will also write a blog regarding this topic, in which also the demos and everything are there for your viewing pleasure at a later moment. Okay, I think that's it for now. Wim, can you take over?
Sure. Okay, if that's the questions are answered, well, if you still have questions, feel free to react to the blog, of course. We'll post a blog regarding this topic as well. You will receive the webinar recording, so you can review the demos at your liking, as much as you like. This is the way to contact this. This is actually our office where we are headed, just some pictures of how we act, how we do. We are located in the main. These are our contact addresses. And yeah, we will, let's see if we can get the slide deck to you guys as well. So you can actually look up these links because it's quite hard to click in a recording, right? So let's give this slide deck to you as well. There are some nice hints in here. That's about the onboarding. It's the full guide about Application Studio, which is quite useful. There's a community space as well. Yeah, and as we've indicated, we'll make a blog and we actually answer any leftover questions if there would be. We would like to thank you a lot for your attention. Thanks a lot for joining our webinar. We are happy to tell you and to actually do this unboxing for you. We keep it out of the box. We like it. We like the product. So I hope you do as well. I hope you enjoyed this this webinar. Thanks for joining, and we hopefully meet you soon. Hopefully live, or otherwise in another webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us.